The story opens with the idea that ranking defines a person's place in society and fuels their desires, with power coming from intellect, wealth, or connections, in a world where absolutely everything is ranked. And against this backdrop, a boy's journey begins in a small village called Tully, where a young boy named Lo chops wood and claims he has finished his tasks until an old man asks him to sharpen his axe. But before Lo can respond, a woman kicks the man away and scolds him for always, demanding favors from Lo, who has been known since birth as someone easily distracted and always helping others, which leads the villagers to treat him more like a tool, though he insists he doesn't mind. But the girl disagrees, saying she knows he is kind, and with a smile she changes the subject by asking if he wants to leave the village, revealing she has found a hidden path no one else knows about, only for an old woman to appear and remind them that no one is allowed to leave, ordering that Yuna, the girl, be locked up for breaking the rules. And later, another villager asks Lo to fetch water, to which he agrees without hesitation. And a man reflects that Lo and Yuna are the only children of the same age in the village, yet have opposite personalities, urging Lo to rest sometimes and consider his own desires. But Lo refuses, explaining that after his parents died, the villagers took him in as family. And because they care for him, he wants to repay their kindness, since he truly loves the village and everyone in it, which moves the man to tears as he offers Lo a place in his home, though Lo declines, saying what matters most to him are the people themselves, while the outside world remains an entirely different matter. And meanwhile, Yuna remains imprisoned as the old woman calls her an unruly child who should behave more like Lo. Yuna asks why they can never leave the village, and the old woman explains that merchants occasionally come by, questioning if that isn't enough. But Yuna insists the outside world is much larger and wonders why they must live trapped there, to which the old woman replies that it is because they are beings resented by someone. And when Yuna curiously asks who that person is, the woman refuses to answer, saying she doesn't need to know since time will eventually resolve everything. In the next scene, Lo is filling buckets with water when a rock suddenly hits him, revealed to be Yuna's doing as she tells him to stay quiet and follow her. When Lo asks if she has sneaked out again, she admits she's been caught so many times that it has become easy, though Lo says that's nothing to be proud of. But Yuna ignores him, insisting that what comes next is far more important, and she reveals a secret passage. Lo worries that leaving the village will bring punishment from the old woman again, but Yuna assures him it's fine, if only for a short while, since she wants to show him something. They head into a forest in the middle of nowhere until Yuna finally declares they've arrived, and Lo is stunned by the sight before him, marveling at the beauty of the world outside and saying with a smile that it is truly gigantic and amazing, while Yuna watches his reaction and asks if he knows the rules of the outside world, explaining that according to a book she received from a merchant, there exists a system called rankings, in which adventurers, transporters, doctors, and many others have their positions recorded, and those who register their names within it are called rankers. Even food and weapons were ranked in that world, making it seem as if the entire universe was locked in constant competition. And Lo, looking disappointed, comments that even the outside world has rules. But Yuna declares she wants to become a ranking adventurer so she can explore many places, compete with rivals around the globe, and one day be respected as a cool adventurer admired by everyone. Hearing this, Lo falls silent, reminding her that the rule forbids them from leaving the village. But Yuna insists she doesn't care because she has already made up her mind, extending her hand to him and urging that they go together, reminding him of the time when she was 5 and attacked by a giant bird, only to be saved by him when a mysterious green aura appeared and gave him the strength to defeat it. She tells him she has known ever since that while Lo often seems absent-minded, when he is serious he is stronger than anyone, which is why he is destined to stand out if he ever leaves the village, and that is why they should explore the world together. Her words leave Lo surprised, but his expression soon hardens as he admits he loves the village too much to leave, which frustrates Yuna, who calls him stubborn before declaring she doesn't care anymore and will move forward on her own, telling him he can stay stuck in the village for the rest of his life. As she leaves, Lo asks her to be careful on her way back, then reflects on how he had never imagined Yuna would truly consider leaving. And while lying back and watching the clouds, he loses track of time until realizing it's already late and prepares to return, only to notice something unusual in the sky. A floating island, glowing brightly before releasing a powerful beam of light that crashes down to the earth with massive impact, leaving Lo confused and wondering what just happened as the island vanishes, though even then he senses something far more troubling still awaits. The boy rushes toward his village, convincing himself that everything is fine and that nothing bad could have happened. His thoughts consumed only by Yuna and the other villagers. But when he finally arrives, he is stunned to see that the entire village, along with everyone in it, has completely vanished. Descending into the area in disbelief, Lo cries out desperately, searching for any survivor. Yet all that remains in his heart are memories of Yuna and the people who once welcomed him as family. And as the truth sinks in, tears stream down his face while he wonders why such a tragedy had to happen. At that moment, a voice tells him he only stood by and watched it happen, arriving too late once again, and Lo turns to see a stranger observing him before descending from the slope and asking if he is a survivor of Tully Village. When Lo answers yes, the man is shocked, acknowledging how hard it must be for him, but urging him to stay calm, assuring him that the floating island is already gone. Lo, surprised, demands to know what that thing was and what happened to the villagers, but the man remains silent before handing him a slip of paper, telling him to give up on the village and go to the place written on it where he can live safely. For Lo, however, nothing matters except uncovering the truth about the island. Yet the man points out that the village has been wiped out and warns that it is no place for a child to get involved, insisting Lo forget everything he saw because that is all he can do now. And as he turns to leave, he pleads with the boy not to dig any deeper, saying there is no need for him to be sacrificed as well. Meanwhile, Lo remains silent, recalling Yuna's words that when he gets serious, he is stronger than anyone, and as a glowing aura begins to envelop his body, the man simply watches as Lo declares there is no way he can forget, vowing to reach that island and avenge everyone. He remembers how his parents died in a landslide when he was young, leaving him alone until the villagers took him in, and how Yuna was always by his side, along with the many kind people who could never ignore someone in pain. And for that reason, he swears he will never forget them, concluding that he will go to the island and bring everyone back. Hearing this, the man studies him in shock, wondering about the immense prana surrounding him, strong enough to distort the very space around them. Prana, the mental energy of living beings, is a force everyone possesses but few recognize, and while it is normally transparent, those with great power can make it visible, with certain races even wielding unique types of it. The man realizes with amazement that this boy must be the survivor of Babel, someone who might one day break free on his own, though he clearly has no idea of his own potential yet. Handing Lo a sword, the man tells him that if he truly wants to reach the island, he must wield it, and if his potential proves real, he will train him, ordering him to strike with killing intent. Both summon their prana, and in seconds Lo charges, and though the man expects clumsy swordplay from a beginner, he feels something different, a pressure and wave of energy that are extraordinary, convincing him the boy may be the real deal, until a massive impact shakes the area. Time passes, and in the next scene the man explains that the island is called the Island of Its, usually floating above the vast ocean, but on rare occasions appearing in completely different places, where it brings destruction to people and land alike. The man explains that he has been working to stop the island but allowed it to slip away again, and according to theory, humans caught in its light are transported to the island, which makes Lo remark that if he had touched it, he would have gone there too, but the man warns that it is only speculation, and even if Lo survived, no one knows what fate would await him. When Lo asks what he should do, the man says the first step is an indirect approach. In the adventure ranking, he must reach the top 10. Adventurers, professionals who explore and develop unknown lands, make up the largest ranking, but those at the top are absolute monsters, and only the top 10 are granted access to the island. Though shocked, Lo listens as the man adds that since its first appearance, the island has held the number 1 danger zone ranking, where adventurers rarely return alive, then asks if Lo still wishes to go there, but the boy, already determined, insists he will. Seeing his resolve, the man agrees to train him for 1 year, though he can only teach the way of the sword, after which Lo must use it to climb the adventurer rankings on his own. Revealing himself as Adel, the number 1 ranked knight and the strongest knight of humanity, he asks for Lo's name, and the boy replies simply, Lo. With that, Adel warns he won't go easy, reminding him that he is the first to bring him down with a single blow, and so begins a grueling year in which Lo's hands and feet are blistered, his muscles torn, his bones crushed, and his body racked with pain. During this time, Adel never again speaks of the island, as though telling him to uncover the truth for himself, and, if he cannot, to give up. Yet despite the agony, Lo clings to the hope that the villagers are still alive. Now the only thing Lo can cling to is belief belief that the villagers are still alive, belief that he will uncover why they vanished, and belief that he will one day understand what the island of the gods truly is, which is why he resolves to rise through the adventure rankings, becoming stronger step by step until he finds the truth. A year later, the scene shifts to the very place where Yuna once stood, with a 17-year-old protagonist now gazes beside Adol, who asks if he is ready, to which Lo replies that he has been ready for a long time. Closing his eyes to recall the moments he shared there with Yuna, the girl who longed for the outside world and disappeared, and now, in her place, he sets off to carry her dream as his own. Adol reminds him it is time to go, and Lo answers that he is already on his way, having grown remarkably under the training of the strongest knight of humanity, and thus the disciple departs on his journey, his adventure pointing toward the island of odds as they travel to the kingdom of Baylor, the royal capital of Turquista. The story then shifts to a building where a girl is fast asleep until a voice wakes her, warning her it is almost time, and she leaps up in a panic, realizing she overslept, only to be teased by her smoky-haired colleague who asks if she spent the entire night watching Rankers again. The girl defends herself, insisting there's nothing wrong with it since she belongs to the recognition department, but the other woman scolds her to take better care of her condition, reminding her that unlike herself, who works indoors, the recognition department is tasked with traveling across the world to evaluate the abilities of ranked individuals and update their standings. It is a demanding profession that requires deep specialized knowledge and strict impartiality. For those in this role, must make fair judgments that determine who stands above and who falls below. To work in the recognition department, one must pass numerous evaluations, and it is a role so demanding that only a select few can perform it, widely regarded as one of the most complex professions in the world. The girl admits that even though she belongs to the department, she is still a low-level employee, and if she wants to pursue her own goals, she must work hard and earn promotion. Curious, the smoky-haired brunette asks what her goal is, suggesting that the best path would be to advance until she becomes the exclusive agent of a highly skilled individual. And while the girl agrees, she admits few people truly catch her attention. Another colleague, a bespectacled woman, teases that she simply has high standards, but the girl denies it, saying most ranked people seem average to her, explaining that competition was much fiercer in the past, whereas now the top spots in every ranking category remain fixed, making the department's role feel less meaningful since rankings only matter if they're actively updated. After the lengthy exchange, the woman with glasses calls her a maniac before opening a door and hinting that a rising star might be inside. The scene reveals a classroom, and a girl carrying the Barak asks if this is the third-year group and why the room is so full, while the smoky-haired brunette notes that it is usually less crowded, guessing the surge is because the Isabon forest was added to the danger zone, ranking 2 months earlier. Even so, she adds that this year's batch has some particularly promising candidates, including Drakus, an adventurer ranked 753 and the leader of the Red Wolf Mercenary Company, as well as Eddie, ranked 402, a member of the renowned marksman family of archers whose father once held the second rank. Alongside them are several other notable individuals, a ranked merchant, a ranked knight, a ranked sailor, and even a ranked guide, but the class itself will determine which of them truly stand out. The girl with the beret explains that even if she doesn't look the part, she is from the recognition department and has the ability to gauge a person's rank just by looking at them, noting that the adventurer rank in particular is highly sought after, since it provides access to special areas like the Isabon Forest and is considered one of the most versatile titles for rankers. Soon after, a bell rings, and as the group heads out, she pauses to greet and welcome the newcomer, our protagonist, who has arrived to register for the rankings. One of the instructors confirms this, explaining that the ranking system is managed and overseen by the recognition department, whose members travel to different regions to evaluate abilities and assign ranks, with updates possible anywhere as long as a department official is present. Lo states that he wishes to register for the adventurer ranking, and the girl smiles, telling him the timing is perfect since the exam is about to begin, asking if he wants to take part. When he agrees, the brunette hands him a form and asks him to write down his name and other details, mentioning there is also an exam fee of 3,000 del, which Lo pays without hesitation. After completing everything, the bespectacled woman gives him his exam number, 53, and directs him to the waiting room. As he passes, the girl with the beret quietly observes that there are still country bumpkins who don't even know what the recognition department is, while the one with glasses remarks that it has been a long time since she had to explain the basics. Meanwhile, Lo enters the waiting room, and the scene shifts to another location where the girl announces the rules of the adventure registration exam, which is divided into 3 parts: a written test, practical test, and a final assessment that will be explained before it begins, with overall results determined by the combined scores. She reminds the participants that even if they perform poorly in one section, they can make up for it in others and should not give up until the very end. With the instructions given, the first test begins, and the examinees immediately start scribbling on their papers, though one clueless participant even asks what the word scope means, and after some time passes, the written exam finally comes to an end. The practical exam was scheduled to take place in the forest outside the village 2 hours later, and the participants were told they would be guided there once the grading of their written test was finished, leaving them to wait in the meantime. In the following scene, the smoky brunette was buried under a mountain of answer sheets and asked the girl with the beret to help her with the grading. And as they worked through the pile, the beret girl came across one that shocked her. It belonged to candidate number 53, the same boy with the lifeless eyes she had noticed earlier, and to her surprise, every single answer on a sheet was wrong. 2 hours passed, and the brunette gathered the examinees to explain that the practical exam would be a treasure hunt in which the items collected had to be delivered to a designated board, with the point values listed on the right for those seeking the highest scores. She reminded them that fighting between examinees was forbidden and that ownership of an item went to whoever touched it first, and with excitement buzzing among the participants, the exam finally began. Relieved to have a break, the brunette slumped back, wondering how many would pass this round, and the beret girl estimated at least half. The one with glasses added that it was easier to judge people when they were in motion, and this batch seemed fairly skilled. Then asked if anyone had caught her colleague's eye, but the beret girl replied that no one stood out. Soon after, a man approached, casually handing over a crystal worth 120 points. When the one with glasses noted that there was still time and asked if he was done, he confirmed it, saying he would pass regardless. The girl pointed out that gathering more items could earn him a higher ranking upon registration, but he dismissed the idea, stating that his sole aim was to work as a mercenary. In the next moment, another boy appeared, muttering that he thought he would be the first, and the brunette inspected the artifact he brought, which was valued at 180 points, commenting wryly that such an item often ended up on her dinner table. The mercenary sneered that the boy was acting arrogant over nothing more than a bird feather, but the boy calmly replied that he hadn't meant to sound cocky, adding that the man wouldn't even be able to notice a bird flying silently at 500 kilometers per hour, and then asked if he wanted to test it. The one with glasses remarked that rankers always carried too much pride, but the girl with the beret countered that such pride was actually their strength. Soon after, another figure approached, and to everyone's shock, it was the protagonist, dragging nothing less than a giant red bear behind him. Admitting he didn't know how to extract the beast's gallbladder, he asked if bringing the entire carcass was acceptable, and the smoky brunette, astonished, confirmed that it was, explaining that part of the bear alone was worth about 300 points. All around them, the other examinees stared in disbelief at what he had just accomplished. Curious, the beret girl pressed him on how he had even recognized the beast as a red bear, given how terrible his written answers had been. But the boy explained that the creature frequently appeared near his village, so he had naturally become familiar with it. Elsewhere, one participant asked another if he had witnessed the protagonist's battle, and while the man confirmed he had, he admitted it was over too quickly to actually observe. By the time he had reached for his sword, the massive bear was already lying dead on the ground. Hearing this only deepened the beret girl's interest in the boy. In the following scene, the perspective shifted underground, where the smoky brunette asked the gathered candidates if they knew what an adventurer must be most cautious of, then answered her own question by stating it was both magical beasts and, without exception, other humans as well. She explained that adventurers were tasked with exploring unknown lands, which naturally led them into uncharted territories where the threats could include not only monsters but also bandits and pirates, meaning that sheer power was essential for survival. For that reason, she declared, the final exam would be a simulated battle where the examinees would fight one another, emphasizing that it was purely to evaluate their personal abilities and that there was no need to be nervous. In the following scene, a burly man approached another candidate and challenged him to a fight, boasting that in the previous exam he had picked up a soundstone and already heard that the mercenary rankings were nothing but a den of thugs filled with empty bravado. He mocked his opponent, threatening to punch him while sneering at how someone like him could ever be more than a third-rate fighter, But within seconds, the arrogant man was effortlessly defeated, collapsing to the ground like a fool. The swordsman apologized, explaining that he simply couldn't tolerate such an insult, while the smoky brunette remarked that the man was doomed to fail from the start, choosing to ignore what she had just witnessed. No matter how fierce a strike someone tried to deliver, she reflected, idiocy always showed through, and true top-tier rankers were nothing short of monsters. Scanning the area, she wondered who would make a suitable match for the skilled swordsman. But before she could decide, the beret girl appeared and eagerly asked if she could select his opponent. Soon after, multiple battles began across the arena, and when match number 8 was announced, it was to be a clash between participants number 27 and number 41. Yet unexpectedly, number 53, the protagonist, was also included. The revelation that Lo would be facing both opponents at once left them surprised, with the shorter one scoffing that it had been a long time since anyone dared underestimate them. The smoky brunette appeared puzzled, questioning if this setup was really correct, but the beret girl, her eyes gleaming, was ecstatic, insisting that her instincts never failed her because that boy was undeniably a monster in human form. The three fighters then locked eyes, tension filling the air while the evaluators silently observed. The first of Lo's opponents was Dracus, leader of the Red Wolf Mercenary Company, which had risen to fame the previous year by defeating the Camera Mafia, a notorious group ranked 62nd among criminal organizations, and rumors claimed the young mercenary had personally brought down 7 executives, including the boss himself. The second was Markman, a gifted young archer from the prestigious Markman family, a lineage renowned for its prodigies. Markman had received elite training from his father, who once ranked 2nd among archers, and he was registered in the archer rankings at just 5 years old, making him a prodigy whose reputation was known by every archer alive, so facing him was no small feat. And with Dracus, the mercenary leader whose fame had already spread, the challenge seemed even greater, yet before them stood only a nameless young man. At the signal of the girl with glasses, the battle began, and within moments, Markman fired an arrow straight at Lo, who dodged easily, but Dracus was already upon him swinging his sword, and the two exchanged a fierce sequence of strikes that left the crowd stunned, as Lo's focus sharpened enough to counter and push Dracus back, spotting an opening until another volley of arrows came, forcing him to slash them out of the air, one ricocheting toward the audience and barely missing. Pausing the fight for an instant as Dracus muttered, the boy fought like a high-tier swordsman from the night ranking, Eddie agreeing he had never seen such power, after which Lo asked if they were tied to other rankings, Markman stating he was ranked 402 among archers while Dracus revealed his 753rd mercenary ranking, and hearing this Lo said he understood before summoning a massive aura that enveloped the arena, stunning them both as the beret girl realized it was prana so dense its color was visible. While back in the fight, the archer declared that ranking wasn't only about profession. In the archer ranking, Markman held position 402, but in the sniper ranking, which specialized in precision shooting, he was ranked 78, though in the end it meant nothing because within seconds he was defeated, leaving only Dracus to face Lo, who stood radiating an overwhelming aura that locked onto his opponent like a predator eyeing its prey, making the poor man already feel doomed. In an instant, Lo appeared behind him with his sword pressed to his neck, and the mercenary immediately raised his hand in surrender, saying he had worked later and couldn't afford to end up unconscious like the other, while Lo held the blade steady a moment longer before stepping back, leaving Dracus shaken as he realized this boy was a monster and wondered who in the world he truly was, and the audience roared in shock that a nameless youth had just defeated 2 3-digit rankers, after which the girl with glasses officially declared number 53 the victor, prompting the beret girl to walk off to another room where she pulled up data on her computer and was astonished to find the protagonist's profile empty of experience, with no record, no ranking, no crimes, and no ties to any faction, which made sense if he had lived in some remote area, but still amazed her that such talent had been buried. So thrilled, she thought she had struck gold and immediately hurried off to claim him as her exclusive recognition agent, only to find a crowd of agents had already swarmed him and realized she was too late. While Lo, utterly confused, asked what such an agent even was, giving her the chance to explain that an exclusive recognition agent is one assigned to a single ranker who frequently updates their records, bypassing the need to wait for the bureau and carrying a special phone to access the latest data, making them essential for anyone hoping to rise efficiently in the rankings, which left Lo surprised before he calmly added a condition. asking if any of them could guarantee him entry into the top 10 of the adventurer ranking, a demand that stunned all the agents into silence. The agents quickly changed their expressions, explaining that the adventurer ranking was filled with monsters and that while Lo's swordsmanship was remarkable, reaching the top 10 would be nearly impossible. And at those words, his expression shifted while the beret girl silently observed before following him as he left. Outside the building, she called out to him, asking why he wanted to enter the adventurer top 10, but he coldly replied it was none of her business, only for her to declare. She would make it her business because she intended to become his exclusive recognition agent and help him reach that goal. Yet he rejected the offer, saying he wouldn't drag a child into danger, which made her angry as she retorted that before being a child, she was a recognition agent, and besides, he was still a child himself. Though Lo insisted that regardless of her age, he had no plans to involve others, but she refused to give up, insisting she had a mission she must fulfill even if it cost her life, and that was why she wanted to team up with him. Hearing this, Lo stopped and looked back at her, studying her face as if recalling his own younger self, admitting that he too carried something he absolutely had to accomplish, and with determination the beret girl extended her hand, vowing that she would climb her way to the top to become one of the best, and thus the two finally struck a deal. After which the scene shifted to night as the girl showed Lo the room she had rented for several days, explaining that it would serve as their base for the time being. Our hero thanked her, acknowledging her capability, though she was still clearly nervous, since their agreement was nothing more than a one-week trial during which she vowed to prove her worth until he had no choice but to bow his head. And while Lo hoped that would be true, she scolded him for talking as if it were someone else's problem before quickly changing the subject, pointing out that she had analyzed his fighting style and noticed how distracted he often seemed in battle, which Lo admitted he was told frequently. Right after, she pulled out her phone to show him the freshly released exam results, revealing that his official adventurer ranking had been posted at number 2728, congratulating him on passing the registration exam and marveling that he had already broken into the 2000s so quickly, though Lo himself was disappointed since he had expected to land in the triple digits after defeating two ranked opponents in that range. But the beret girl explained that the adventurer ranking contained far more people than most categories, making the competition especially fierce. And though his strength was undeniable, rankings factored in more than just raw ability. For instance, his swordsman classification was already 58, which she emphasized was an excellent rank and considered a mark of talent by the knowledge department. Yet Lo appeared surprised by this, prompting her to explain that most players possessed multiple classifications depending on their skills and professions, though each new one meant more responsibilities and work, which was why she thought he should register in several categories as well. But Lo dismissed the idea, saying he wasn't interested in looking for work, leaving the girl to remark that even in the short time they had known each other, she already felt she understood him, summing up that his only focus was reaching the adventurer rankings top 10 by the shortest possible path, all for the singular purpose of one day stepping onto the island of the power. Lo asks how she knew that, and the girl explains it's the only special privilege granted to the top 10 in the adventurer ranking, adding that she also wants to hear his reason once their trial period ends, to which Lo agrees, saying they should share their situations fairly. Though the beret girl warns hers is complicated to explain to someone who just registered because what she's chasing is the very darkness of the rankings, leaving the protagonist confused until she quickly changes the subject, asking where he got such overwhelming power and those sword skills, since such mastery isn't something gained overnight. And Lo reveals that only a year ago he became the disciple of a knight named Adol, which shocks her as she blurts out whether he meant the number one knight himself. And though Lo clarifies that he was only a disciple for a year, she insists that even so it's astonishing news, since Adol is notorious for rejecting all would-be apprentices despite countless requests. And if there were a rejection ranking, he'd undoubtedly hold the top spot. Yet rumors persist that he intends to pass his title to the next generation's strongest knight, driving others to climb desperately. So the fact that the so-called idiot protagonist ended up as his one disciple is almost unbelievable. Still, when Lo asks if a man is really that great, the girl replies firmly that yes. Being ranked number one means he's the strongest in the world, though Lo counters that he still managed to cut him with his sword, which she refuses to believe before turning to her phone to investigate his origins, only to find the last name Tully listed in the database as newly registered, making her suspect it might be a pseudonym. And this sparks a flashback in Lo's mind to when Adol asked him what his last name was, which he didn't understand, only for Adol to explain it was a cultural difference, and that if Lo truly wanted to reach the island of the power by the shortest path, he should go by the name Lo Tully from now on. The risk was high, but if he moved quickly, he might receive the clues first. And hearing that, our hero, no fool, simply agreed, after which the scene returned to the present with the boy saying it wasn't a pseudonym because Tully was actually his family's precious name, prompting the beret girl to accept his answer and thank him for sharing. Though since her reconnaissance agent duties were finished for the day, she decided they should rest and even suggested removing her hat, leaving her without it and shocking the protagonist, who only then realized she was a girl, to which she asked if he had just noticed. And when he apologized, she grew irritated, demanding if that was all he had to say. The next morning, she sat in a room reading a newspaper when the protagonist came downstairs, and she casually called him Shorty, remarking that he had woken up early, to which he replied he had only gone to relieve himself before wishing her good morning, making her fix her hair as she said their long journey was only beginning, but this was their first step. So they would hold a strategy meeting to aim for the Adventurer Rankings Top 10, and the scene shifted to another place where she explained that to raise his rank he needed achievements in adventure, with land development and exploration forming the basics, which should be done voluntarily. But for now, she recommended taking on missions, since many aspiring adventurers started by gathering or investigating tasks that also paid rewards, making them perfect for beginners, noting that missions could be taken from the reconnaissance board or even guilds depending on the country. Though with her there, he could receive them directly, which impressed the hero, who admitted her phone seemed convenient, and she added that if he made her his official reconnaissance agent, he could use it freely, after which they began browsing the phone together until Lo asked if there were any missions that could quickly boost his rank. To which the beret girl replied that all he needed to do was accept high difficulty missions. In that case, our hero picks the first mission, which involves retrieving a hidden treasure from an underwater temple, but the girl immediately calls it impossible and completely unrealistic for him right now, insisting he trust the eyes of a reconnaissance agent since that mission is far too dangerous and he'd die before even raising his rank. Yet Lo asks her to let him try anyway, reasoning that the eyes is considered the #1 danger zone, and once he sets foot there will be no turning back. Just then, a man appears and asks if he's in trouble, and the girl recognizes him as Loud Bloatward, a formidable figure ranked 11th in the adventurer ranking, which shocks Lo as he recalls his master warning that adventurers are the most numerous among all rankings, and that those at the very top are true monsters. Realizing this must be one of them since being 11th means he's only a step away from challenging the islands. The girl with the beret says it's perfect timing because she needs Loud's help and asks him to give the boy a proper beating. And the scene cuts directly to an arena where Loud apologizes for making Lo wait, explaining it'll just be a simple duel, so he borrowed a weapon that may be light but will suffice, to which Lo politely calls him sir and says he's ready, but Loud tells him to speak casually since etiquette isn't required in the adventure ranking, adding that having updated his rank once before, he knows the girl is truly remarkable because she isn't only smart but also creates valuable rankings with a passion other reconnaissance agents lack. So if a request comes from someone like her, he feels compelled to help since she clearly cares about the boy, though Lo, clueless to that part, only focuses on the battle, sensing from the man's presence alone that he is very strong. In a moment, Loud steps forward. Lo feels as if that spear will then the girl calls out to Lo, saying this is a good opportunity because he needs to learn at least once just how vast the world really is. And though her words surprise him, he thinks that if this is what she calls the vastness of the world, he already understands it well. The two warriors lock eyes, and Loud gives the signal to begin, and the instant their weapons collide, Lo prepares an attack, only for the man to dodge with ease while simultaneously analyzing his movements, noting how Lo channels prana into his armor and releases it through his slash, even boosting his agility by wrapping prana around his hands and feet, and he recognizes the style as the sword Saints, a discipline passed down to a single successor, though he doubts such secret arts would be entrusted to a mere boy. But before he can dwell on it further, Lo suddenly appears behind him, warning that it's no time to daydream, and tries to strike. Yet Loud had already predicted it, calmly remarking that he's still quite relaxed, leaving Lo stunned before launching another strike that the man blocks effortlessly. Loud observes that just from his prana alone, it's clear the boy has tremendous potential, especially with that glow radiating from his body, and as they pull apart, he directly asks Lo's race, warning that pretending to be clueless won't work since that kind of prana glow isn't something one acquires later in life. Though he says it doesn't matter because he'll get the answer eventually, then presses further by asking if the boy can also use enchantments, a question Lo doesn't even understand, when suddenly flames erupt behind Loud as he begins casting an enchantment, warning that if Lo doesn't use his true power, he'll be killed. But the poor boy, still confused, can only brace himself as fiery spears come flying. And though he manages to block them with his sword, the leftover force still strikes him, prompting Loud to explain that a regular blade can't possibly defend against an enchantment. He then snaps his fingers, conjuring several spears that shoot toward Lo, who manages to dodge some but finds no time to think, when suddenly a flashback of his master appears in his mind, reminding him that his handling of prana is still rough. Yet once he learns control, he'll gradually master techniques, and with a red aura forming on his blade, the master demonstrates the simplest technique, telling him to watch carefully, and in the present, Lo instinctively mimics those movements, channeling his mana into an attack aimed straight at Loud, who is surprised at the speed of the strike, but blocks it with a spear, only for the boy to rush in again within seconds, forcing the man to acknowledge that this kid is truly strong, though his defense with the spear holds steady as he notes the slash was fast enough to be invisible to the eye, but still lacking the power to topple him. Then, without hesitation, Loud hurls his spear, and though Lo narrowly blocks, it isn't enough as the blow still lands, leaving him realizing that he had already lost. Yet even so, Loud admires his effort, summoning multiple spears in response while the Barrack girl, confused by what just happened, hears Loud warn not to underestimate an adventurer's ranking. And as the barrage rains down, Lo's frustration peaks until he's struck all at once and collapses on the ground in tears, utterly defeated. The battle concluded with Loud, the 11th ranked adventurer, declared the victor. And as the girl thanks him, saying at least Lo should now understand, Loud turns back to ask if she truly believed the boy could win. And when she admits she thought it was possible, he presses further, asking if her belief was based on the boy being a disciple of Ad-Dal, shocking her, before explaining he recognized it instantly from the high-speed sword technique, for it was clearly the Sword Saint style, a discipline inherited by only one chosen successor and revered as the strongest. Sword art among knights for generations, yet now wielded by a mere adventurer, which from a knight ranker's perspective is nothing short of seeing a sacred relic stolen. The girl goes wild, confirming yes, and immediately thinks she'll have to stop the boy from meeting ranked knights in the future, while Loud warns that would indeed be wise since in the worst case, he could even be killed, and though operating as an Ignite ranker might allow things to settle calmly, there remains another point likely impossible to ignore. Yet the Barrack girl insists that the real reason she believed in Lo wasn't the Sword Saint style, but rather because he claimed to have landed a hit on Ad-Dal, which made her trust him. And though the man is stunned, he dismisses it as impossible with Lo's current level, while the girl agrees, but notes that Lo doesn't strike her as someone who lies, leaving Loud to suspect there may be deeper circumstances, for the Sword Saint style alone was shocking, but the matter of his prana is even more curious. And as he retrieves a spear, he considers that Lo may actually possess enchantment ability, and had he used it, the fight's outcome might have been different. Suddenly, a flashback shows a woman staring at something in curiosity until an old lady appears, warning her never to speak aloud the poem that trapped them here, telling her those words must remain sealed. And soon after the woman leaves, offering a quiet apology to Lo, when in the present the boy abruptly awakens, battered and bedridden, asking what happened, while the girl lights up with relief at seeing him conscious, for they are now in the recognition bureau's infirmary where he had slept the entire day as if a switch had been flipped, and the doctor explains that he was suffering from accumulated mental fatigue, and, though it's unclear what burdens he carries, he warns that Lo is pushing himself far too hard, which leaves the boy stunned. A flashback of the battle runs through his mind, making him admit she's right, and the girl fixes her gaze on him, saying she has something important to ask, whether he knows what enchantments are. But of course, the clueless boy says no, prompting her to explain that enchantments are a special way of manipulating prana that certain races can use, with many of the top-ranked individuals being capable of it. And when Lo asks if Loud is one of them, the Barrack girl confirms yes, because he's a warrior of the Borward tribe, a combat-driven people skilled in hunting who live in the fertile southern lands and pass down their techniques orally in the form of poems, which are also called enchantments. Though because they require special components, they're usually impossible to acquire later in life, and she adds that Loud himself suspected Lo might also possess such an ability, asking if he has any idea about it. But the boy remains frozen as another flashback of that mysterious woman surfaces in his mind, making him wonder if it's true, while the girl grows excited, saying enchantments are a powerful trump card for rankers, and once again declaring her belief that he could become top tier. Then looking at her phone, she announces she's found the perfect mission, located in the Asura forest, which was classified as the 48th most dangerous zone just 2 months ago. And when Lo asks if an ecological survey means simply observing animals and such, she explains that's only part of it. For in reality, people have recently been disappearing there, with adventurers who took the same mission vanishing without a trace, starting with those around rank 1000 but now even rank 800. So if he uncovers the cause, he could easily climb 200 places. Hearing that, the boy immediately rises from bed and accepts the mission, asking if she suggested it because she truly believes he can succeed, and she answers that of course she does, which is why they need to proceed with the acceptance procedures right away, warning him that the Asura forest contains prohibited species and restricted zones, though since she's there will be fine, but still he must be cautious. And when Lo asks what happens if he doesn't follow the rules, the girl warns that his ranking will fall because no matter how skilled someone is, if they recklessly damage the ecosystem or fail missions, their reputation as an adventurer collapses, meaning ranking is the same as credibility itself. So he accepts wholeheartedly, declaring this mission a new beginning and the first step toward climbing the adventurer rankings, determined to give it their best together, to which the boy smiles in agreement. And the next scene already shifts to the eerie purple forest where a man is strangling someone, telling him he can't unsee what's been seen, while another bystander asks if he killed again, only for the man to shrug that the Reconnaissance Bureau won't care about low-ranked adventurers, then steps on a caged beast, mocking that striving sincerely for higher rank is foolish, revealing the animal to be a Neo-Suros whose horn alone could push him into the 3-digit rankings. Though an older bearded man nearby warns that strength alone can't raise one's rank yet. The killer, Cruel, retorts that he exists to punish injustice, while the man dismisses him, vowing instead to claim the battlefield for himself and reach the top 100, introducing himself as Dahlin, currently ranked 672, with a status clearly gained through unfair means. And finally, the scene cuts back as the protagonist and the Barrett girl arrive near the cursed forest where a soldier requests to check their ranking, and Lo hands him a paper. The soldier sees Lo is ranked 2728 and allows him entry, after which Lo asks how many people are in the adventurer ranking, and the girl explains there are about 30,000, though only around 20,000 are active, but even then the adventurer ranking is a hell unlike any other, with sheer numbers making it incomparable. If, for instance, a 4-digit ranked adventurer corresponds to someone of higher standing in other rankings, meaning the quality of the adventurer ranking is unmatched, so a 3-digit adventurer is equal to a 2-digit individual elsewhere and far stronger than the opponents they fought during the exam, which surprises Lo as he admits the level is extremely high, and soon after they finally enter the ominous forest, where Lo, deep in thought, is asked by the girl if something's wrong, and observing the surroundings he says this is no ordinary forest, which shocks her because she notes only skilled adventurers can sense danger zones instantly, while ordinary people cannot, which is why such zones are classified. And she explains the reason Asura Forest was marked as a danger zone just 2 months ago is simple, as at that exact moment a presence draws near and she reveals it is due to massive monster outbreaks, warning Lo that he must protect her properly, though he already understood that. And in seconds he wipes out a great number of monsters, only for a flying beast to swoop down, which he seizes by the beak and slashes cleanly before continuing to cut through wave after wave. Yet noticing more creatures still approaching, and the Barrett girl asks if those are the techniques Adal taught him, to which Lo replies yes, though he admits there are still many he cannot use yet, but he believes he may soon be capable of unleashing one particular technique. At that moment, a giant foot crashes down, belonging to a massive orc ranked 126 in the monster rankings, which fixes its gaze on our hero, who channels prana into his sword and declares he should test it, wrapping the energy around his whole body before attempting an X-shaped slash with his magic blade. Yet to his confusion, the attack barely works, and the orc, equally baffled, charges after them, prompting Lo to admit he thought it would be effective while the girl panics, scolding him for forgetting that his own life comes first. only to freeze in horror when she realizes the path ahead suddenly ends. But Lo quickly scoops her up and recklessly leaps off the cliff, sprinting down its face like a madman until he lands safely on the opposite side, leaving the girl shaken in disbelief while Lo calmly breathes relief, though the Barrett girl bursts in anger, demanding he warn her before pulling such stunts. And Lo sheepishly apologizes, saying Ad Doll's training made that kind of thing a habit. Then noticing how different the forest here looks, the girl explains he's fortunate because this is the research target area, where after the forest was marked a danger zone, new surveys began, with 80% completed but 20% still unexplored. The very part where monster outbreaks occurred, filled with unique plants and animals, many unlike anything Lo has ever seen, which fills him with awe as he thinks this must be the true adventure Yuno once longed for them to share. But when a presence approaches, he draws his sword, only for the girl to stop him, pointing out that the magical beast is injured, and as they near it, Lo asks if they shouldn't finish it off, but she insists otherwise, explaining the creature bears a royal horn, belongs to a nearly extinct rank 4 species, and with its leg wounded she pulls something carefully from her backpack to tend to it. Rankers often get injured, so she had studied basic medicine and had already treated him once after his defeat against Loud, and seeing the situation now, she insists they set up a base here for the day since, as a top evaluator, she cannot abandon the wounded creature, though she clarifies that protecting the royal horn is part of conducting the ecological survey and not because she values it more than him, which the hero accepts without protest. By nightfall, the camp is set, and while everyone rests, the girl sleeps beside the wolf while the protagonist continues to train, striking at a tree with his sword in a strict routine until frustration sets in when the blows fail to land as he intended, forcing him to stop and collapse on the grass. Reflecting on his failures and realizing he is far too weak to set foot on the island of which pushes him to vow that he must grow stronger. And recalling Barrett's words, as well as Loud's claim that he, too, might possess an art, he starts to believe that possibility could be real. Yet by the time morning arrives, Lo is already awake, and when he notices the girl worried, she explains the wolf had suddenly begun thrashing restlessly despite its wound being healed, surprising Lo, who learns that the royal horn's regenerative powers are incredibly high and that with proper care recovery comes fast. But even though the beast is still just a cub and should normally get along with humans, its agitation suggests its injury was inflicted by human hands. She tells Lo to examine the horn closely, pointing out the chipped edges that seem to have been caused by illegal hunters, explaining that royal horns are incredibly rare and were once captured in large numbers, which is why they are now on the list of very rare species. Yet despite the prohibition, demand persists, and so they continue to be hunted secretly and sold on the black market under the name unicorn. Suddenly, the crazed beast lunges at the girl, but the protagonist instinctively protects her with his sword, staring at the creature with a cold gaze until it becomes frightened and flees. And when he asks if they should pursue, Luke confirms they must since even though it has healed, it is not completely recovered, and more importantly, there had been no prior record of a royal horn inhabiting Azaba Forest, making the chase a vital part of the ecological survey. In the next scene, after preparing their gear, Lo volunteers to advance first, prompting Luke to warn him to be cautious because the forest may harbor illegal hunters, which makes him ask whether defeating such hunters would increase his ranking. And Luke answers that it depends on their ability, though the possibility exists. So Lo accepts the risk and rushes ahead, declaring he'll defeat as many as he can, moving so quickly that the girl admits she can't even keep track of him anymore. And in the following moment, he is already deep in the forest, convinced the monster must have come this way, when suddenly he senses something unusual. An arrow suddenly flies toward him, but Lo easily dodges it, and out of nowhere a man with a sword appears, accusing him of being an illegal hunter before swinging down at him, only for Lo to avoid it again as their blades collide. And in the midst of the clash, the man is shocked by the sheer force of the boy's prana before telling him to wait, which makes Lo pause as he recognizes the voice and realizes it's Dracus, while the other figure reveals himself as well, though Lo still doesn't remember him and bluntly asks his name, frustrating the blonde, who snaps that he's Eddie while Dracus introduces himself more calmly. The scene then shifts to the Adventurer Ranking Registration Center, where several people are gathered, and as Dracus is speaking with the receptionist about what kind of ranking mission he wants, that same archer suddenly shows up to pick up a commission, the two locking eyes immediately. And in the next moment, they're elsewhere, sitting across from each other, and talking again. though their words overlap until Eddie finally insists Drakus go first, only for Drakus to insist the same, until Eddie finally asks whether he investigated the mysterious boy who defeated them, to which Drakus admits he found nothing, only that the kid never belonged to any ranking at all. Something Eddie can't accept since he was known as a prodigy in the Archer rankings, but had his pride shattered by some nobody with no record. While Drakus stays quiet and recalls a flashback of being thanked for his work, asked how the adventurer registration had gone, and calmly replying that it was completed, earning praise from the bearded man who said that was exactly what he expected from their captain. While another boy added that now they could expand their range of activities, and even a blonde girl teased that their captain probably gave the examinees a hard time, though Drakus denied it, making everyone laugh until a man in a cloak scoffed that there was no way a three-digit mercenary would ever lose to a rookie, right before Drakus suddenly slammed his hand on the table, leaving everyone stunned. The boy is extremely irritated, muttering that the guy didn't even look at him, as if treating him like nothing more than a pebble on the path, and declares that starting tomorrow they will triple their training regimen, while the blonde girl points out that since he registered for the adventurer rankings, they will now be able to accept commissions that were previously off-limits. But even so, Drakus insists it still isn't enough, because the world is far larger than they imagined, and that is why he himself will return to training properly again, too. The scene then shifts back to the present as the boy reflects on everything that happened, admitting that his pride is justified, that although he had no intention of focusing on the adventure rankings, he still cannot let things end this way. Noting that he is currently ranked 631, while the boy who defeated them stands at 2,728, and that their interests now align, which means they must deal with this. The blonde boy then brings up that there is a forest recently added to the danger zone rankings, to which Drakus responds that it is Abba Forest, and that the more dangerous it is, the better their chances of raising their rankings. After which the scene shifts once again to the present, where the three are locked in a tense stare-down that recalls their previous battle, only for a deafening sound to suddenly shake the area, prompting Lo to draw his sword and state firmly that they will have to finish their conversation later, before immediately sprinting off toward the source. Eddie runs after him, saying that the wolf appeared and he thought it was being chased by hunters, concluding that Lo is probably trying to protect that beast, to which Lo agrees while noting how fast Eddie is running. And then Eddie explains that when moving through the forest, it is best to use the uneven terrain, activating his wind ability to accelerate even more, surprising Lo, who still refuses to fall behind as he channels his prana to match the pace. Soon after, Eddie calls out that the wolf is being attacked by a magical beast, and in the next moment they come face to face with a massive creature whose tentacles strike at them. But Lo draws his sword to defend, deciding that if he can't get close, he'll at least launch ranged slashes to avoid being caught. Lo then asks Eddie if he can create an opening, but Eddie says it's not something that happens instantly, though he still instructs him to aim for the eyes while keeping on the move, firing arrows as Lo advances with his guidance and landing hits straight on target, just as Drakus suddenly appears and orders them to go for the legs, prompting Lo to dive low and deliver a precise strike that heavily damages the monster before Drakus tells them to grab the wolf and escape. So the protagonist secures the beast while Drakus swings his sword to sever a tree trunk that comes crashing down on the creature, finishing the fight and ensuring the wolf's rescue. Afterward, Eddie admits it wasn't bad since the instructions were solid, while Drakus calmly states that he's accustomed to leading others. And when asked if he was calling his subordinate, Drakus doesn't respond. Meanwhile, Lo watches from above, reflecting that the top 10 adventurers and their sword skills are impressive, but even so, reaching the top 10 by relying on swordsmanship alone is nearly impossible, concluding that he will need to master abilities beyond the blade in order to climb the rankings, something that will certainly be difficult at.